Hello, hello, and welcome to this episode of the Nerds of the North podcast, episode number 43, the 43rd episode on the books. We're just going to kind of be winging it today, ladies and gentlemen. We're in that infamous between projects happening with Marvel and Star Wars. Ms. Marvel's coming out in the near future, She-Hulk coming out in the near future. But really, at this juncture, we don't have a ton to talk about. So we're just going to be kind of winging it. We're going to talk about maybe some personal stuff going on in our lives, or projects we're working on, things we're doing, things we're enjoying. So all of that being said, I'm host number one, Matt, and as always, joining me is host number two.
I am Nick.
But yeah, so we have like no topical thing to really run with near the start here. There was like some trailers, but how are you, Nick? How you doing? I know we were on a pretty long chat before we started the podcast. So
yeah, I'm doing pretty well. Already off topic here, but well versus good. I'm doing good. I'm doing well. I think well is grammatically correct.
You are doing well. Superman does good.
I'm doing well. I'm trying to think stuff that's happened recently in my life that I can go into. Probably nothing that's interesting to our viewing audience, but just been really engaged with my local church. You know, if you have any history listening to Matt and I discuss it all, our lives, and I guess I'm just derailing this already, about like Matt's history with religion versus my history with religion. So that's an interesting conversation I like getting into with Matt as well. But I've been really involved with my local church recently, and I've been really grateful for that connection. This my connection with Jesus recently. And let's see what else. What's going on in my life, Matt? I've been writing a lot. Been trying to write my story a lot. I don't think I discussed that with you earlier, but really trying.
Oh, yeah, you've been. I know that you had finished. I think the last time we talked about your book was you had finished your first draft of it, and we're kind of entering into your editing phase.
Right.
So
I'm editing. I'm in the process of editing it, which has been fun and rewarding because honestly, writing is really hard. Editing for me is way more fun because if it's already written, then it's just a matter of like shaping it into what I want it to be.
Yeah, your beautiful little lump of a book, shaping it into something you're more happy with.
And I'm like not that. I'm not a good writer necessarily, but I enjoy doing it. So maybe at some time I will share that with our audience, meager as it may be.
Yeah, that could be exciting.
Yeah. Also, we're working on starting a book club with my friends from church. We're gonna read My Bright Abyss by Christian Wyman, which is about a man who is a poet, an author, or I guess a poet who was diagnosed with a terminal illness and then came to faith during that time. I believe he's still alive, but I'm really excited to read that. I haven't read it before.
What's it called? My Bright of Illness?
Sorry, My Bright Abyss.
Oh, My Bright Abyss. I see.
It's kind of a oxymoronic, it's
interesting.
Yeah.
All right. I need to get back on the reading train, man. I've been like dabbling in Hellblazer a lot. The new the new 52 run of Hellblazer.
Okay. Yeah. I haven't read. New 52 is when I first started really reading the DC universe. So
yeah, no, me too. I have the full Batman collection of that run, and that was a really fantastic run from most people's understandings.
Scott Snyder.
Mm-hmm.
Court of Owls.
Yeah, the Court of Owls story is just like a really cool. I thought it was really well done.
Batman's
I've been having a hard time really grasping on the Hellblazer. I actually do really like Constantine as a character, but I feel like with the kind of ludicrous nature of the magic side of things in DC, it just gets really hard to keep track of what's happening really quickly.
I'm a huge fan. So that was when Scott Snyder, he was involved in DC Comics before the New 52 in his run on Batman. He did a few runs on Batman even before that, but it wasn't for the main Batman line. But he also, at the same time, he started writing the Batman for the New 52, he started writing Swamp Thing for the New 52.
Right.
Which kind of goes crazy. I don't know if I'm a huge fan of it overall, but definitely when Scott Soule takes over for Scott Snyder, I love that run. And there's sort of some interplay between Swamp Thing and John Constantine, Animal Man in particular, with Jeff Lemire.
Definitely. Yeah, Swamp Thing's been around in the issues I've read so far. I think I'm in the 3rd issue of that run. I plan on finishing it all the way. I'm going to probably have to drag myself kicking and screaming to do that because it hasn't like quite grabbed me by the throat. And like, it's kind of a hard comparison, I guess, because like the last thing that I read in terms of a graphic novel that really like hooked me was Invincible. And that was just a story that I was obsessed with, and with like my wife and I were racing through, like literally trying to see who could finish the series first. And we both were just super engaged with it and thought it was a really cool story.
I know I brought this up before in the podcast, but I love The Sandman by Neil Gaiman. I never know how to pronounce his name. I love The Sandman though.
Yeah.
I would recommend that. I don't know. Maybe that's not your jam, but definitely.
No, I could. I mean, I try and be flexible on things that I would read. I mean,
it's definitely from the 90s. So just be aware. But
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I do tend to have kind of a rougher time getting into graphic novels and comics that are a little bit older. I've been very spoiled just with like the clarity of a lot of like newer comics and how clean the art is. But I don't know though, like when it comes to like art styles, DC, like I just really feel like I'm much more at home and engaged with the art of DC comics. They're like, I have tried getting into Iron Man comics a handful of times, and I just always think the art looks like complete dog shit. Like I can't engage with it very well, and it's because of the visual aspect of it. Like I just never look at it and think, oh yeah, this looks really great. I'm always like, this like it, I know it's literally a cartoon, but it feels too cartoony. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, I've always felt that way about the Marvel versus DC comics I've read. Marvel, you never know what you're going to get, but I feel like a DC comic, you always kind of have an idea what it's going to be. And the Sandman is a little bit different than that. I mean, it is technically DC Comics at this point, but it started off on like their more adult line, I think Vertigo. So it's a little bit different than your typical. Let's see where they are exactly over here, because I'm pretty sure it's Vertigo.
Sure.
Oh, and you've read Saga, right?
Yeah, we're all actually, yeah, that's kind of the next thing that we're hoping will drop soonish. Well, actually, I guess they are in the midst of doing issues for that, right? I know that we generally will wait until the full next compendium of
the other thing too, 52, I think you'd really love. I would check that out.
Oh yeah, that's another kind of like Invincible-esque series, isn't it? Like
it's like a year where the main DC heroes like Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Superman obviously kind of disappear. I don't remember exactly where they go, but it's basically just like a whole series about sort of like the more B level, C level heroes in the DC universe. So like Booster Gold and Black Adam and just trying to think of some other ones. It's been a while since I've read it. I know Booster Gold in it. So.
Yeah, oh, that's cool though.
Yeah.
Actually, as a brief aside, speaking of Batman and Company, currently I'm in the midst of working on my Red Hood cosplay.
Cool. That's cool.
Yeah,
I didn't know you were making that.
Yeah, I have the two halves of the helmet currently. Obviously, it's a bit of a green hood situation currently, but this will be getting painted and primed and all that.
Yeah, that's cool.
But yeah, so that's been like where all my hobby time's been going. That and Elden Ring. But
yeah, like I told you before, I started playing Breath of the Wild again. So,
oh man, I was so disappointed hearing that Breath of the Wild had been pushed back to 2023. Like, we might have even talked about that in the last podcast, but so disappointed.
So how have you been, Matt? We were talking about you having a kid earlier.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I mean, like,
or not having
I,
a kid.
I won't. Yeah, I'm going to premise this by saying we are not having a kid right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
We are
Matt's
not.
parents, if you're
Yeah,
watching this, Matt is not having a
no.
child.
Yeah, I am not. Yeah, no, I am.
That's how they probably were. If they don't watch this, but if they did, they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, is this how we're learning about this?"
No, God. No, I know that Evan has thought of all kinds of fun, creative ways to spring that news on friends and family, but no, yeah. I mean, like, it's been a part of our. We've always known that we want to have at least one child, and I know that initially we were thinking maybe we'd like have one of our own and then adopt one, thinking maybe two. But like that might still be a thing we consider doing, depending on how much we either love or hate being a parent. I generally like try and look at it from a practical point of view, and also from kind of a selfish point of view. Is like how is being a parent going to be something that I enjoy? Will it be something that I enjoy? Is it going to enhance, it may enhance my experience, it may not enhance Evan's experience, or vice versa. And so like we're both very conscious of that. We want to make sure we make the right decision for ourselves, and then just like, I mean, I'm sure everyone else is having the same issues in terms of just like finances. It's like a lot of people, you're kind of used to, it's like, oh yeah, you get married, you get a house, you have kids, and that's the American dream, but like, good luck getting a fucking house right now for anything even remotely reasonable.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's kind of like where we're on it right now. It's like, yeah, we'd love to have a kid. Where the hell are we going to put one? Like we have two dogs that are, eagerly needing our attention often. So it's like, we want to make sure that their quality of life stays where it's at or better,
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's kind of where we're at on that whole topic. It's like,
Yeah.
sure, but when is the question? So
right. Yeah, I know. Well, honestly, like I would love to have kids. I think in a way, like I'm like really excited about that prospect, but my life isn't, I obviously don't have a partner right now, so it's kind of hard to have a child.
I mean, the old fashioned way, I mean, there are definitely people who, find themselves.
Yeah. No, I don't think that's for me. I would want.
You'd want
I would want a wife. I'd want like, hopefully to have like a biological child, I think. But I mean, who knows? I've drunken enough Mountain Dew in my life that maybe it's affected my my ability.
Yeah. They're in desperate need of Dorito dust moving.
But yeah, no, I think that'd be awesome. So, but I think what we're talking about relationship stuff for me recently, and it's like I've kind of decided to put that on the back burner as far as my life goals at the moment. So
yeah, I mean, I think this is the advice I give people constantly, and I will admit that more often than not, the people I give this advice to don't listen to me. But so take with that with what you will. But like, I think just waiting after a relationship ends and just like working on yourself, right, is really important.
Well, I mean, I haven't had a relationship end recently, so.
Yeah, no, and yeah, I'm not talking about you in particular, but I'm just talking about like I've worked in and out of the restaurant industry for like the better part of 10 years. And I would always work with guys who are like, are around my age generally, sometimes younger, sometimes older. And it was always just really funny seeing, like, most recently, I like living in Austin, worked at this pizza place, and I'd work with dudes who, like, they're really interested in sex, and that's about where their like known interests in women begin and end. And it's like, well, yeah, so does literally every other dude. What else are you bringing to the table?
Yeah. Well, I mean, everyone in theory would like, well, everyone, I think, I was actually contemplating this the other day. It's like how important relationships are to us. Like it's very, there's some people that can go their entire life just by themselves, but I mean, just to think like even that bring more people into this world, like you have to engage with another person, like right. It's not something that you can just butt off another person. So right. It's just interesting how important that those having connections with other people really are. And it's built into us that we need those connections with other people.
Right. Oh yeah. No, I mean, it's I mean, like like we briefly mentioned for a second, like there are definitely people who find themselves in a situation where they want to, raise a child, but they aren't actively in a relationship, but they don't feel the need to have one to do the other, and so, like men and women, like, who find themselves uniquely situated they can't have one of their own necessarily, without like some level of assistance, but they go out and adopt a child or they foster a child, and like I think it's a really cool endeavor to go into. I know that it would terrify the hell out of me to do that by myself for sure. I feel like I'd go crazy personally, like, but
the dog is hard enough.
Yeah, right. I know. I was gonna say, like, there's definitely times with my dogs where I'm just like, I love you, but goddamn, Yeah. And I don't know, kids are different in that way. Like, dogs just kind of are what they are. There's not going to be a whole lot of change. You see a tremendous amount of change in that first year, and then they kind of just are what they are. Whereas, like, kids constantly keep evolving. The version of little Timmy you get at 3 is going to be quite different than the version of little Timmy you get at 6 and onwards. And so,
yeah. Well, I like how we're going on to these big, huge topics, Matt.
Yeah, I know. Our audience is probably getting some whiplash.
It's no, like, it's I mean, I don't. Yeah, our audience. I mean,
don't these idiots normally talk about comic books? Stay in your lane.
Yeah. Well, even like for me, like as far as like a relationship stuff and wanting to build a life with someone, like I said before we started recording, I think one of the most important things to me right now is finding a wife that like has a really strong relationship with God. I know for you as an atheist, that must sound pretty crazy. And to me, like if I had said that 3 years ago, I'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, that's absurd. But yeah, this is some women that you talk to, people you talk to, you're like, man, you just have this beautiful connection to the Holy Spirit. And it's just, I've been sort of driven to those people. And I would like those kind of people to be driven to me as well. Anyway.
I mean, like it makes sense to me. It's like you could provide that context of, to just about anything. I mean, if it's something that's important to you, then you would like to try and find someone who would like either help foster that and make it grow, and that could be like a hobby in video games. That could be like a real passion for wanting to be a parent, or being like professionally driven, like finding someone who would like help foster your and their career. Like, I think it's really important to find someone who will complement that in a way that makes sense for you. I know that when I was younger, it was always like I've been like a very romantic, or I romanticize things tremendously. I've been that way for pretty much my whole life, much to my detriment.
Yeah, I have the same issue.
Yeah, and so when I was younger, it was always a matter of the thought that ran through my head was like, I'm looking for someone who will complete me, right? And which
you were a Batman or a Joker looking for your Batman.
Yeah, just like this stupid notion of like finding a person who's gonna like make me whole. And thinking back to that now, I'm just like, God, I was such an idiot. Like, that's not how it should work at all. It's like you should be a fully formed person seeking out another fully formed person, and then you should complement one another. You're looking for the salt to your pepper, or vice versa. Like two things that are good by themselves, but when combined, make something even better. It's like you're looking for your complement. And thinking of like, once I reframed that in my head, it definitely changed some of my own priorities, and then changed my priorities, who I was looking for. And then it just so happened that the woman that ended up being my wife kind of fell from the sky at the right time. But yeah, you're looking for someone who's gonna complement your life. Not, you shouldn't be looking for someone to complete you, because it's not someone else's job to fucking fix your ass. Like you should be ready to contribute something to a relationship, at least in the romantic context.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it anyway.
Well, I mean, it's a healthy way to look at it, and I agree with it.
Yeah, I know that. I know that younger me.
It's easy to turn having a relationship into an idol, and when that happens, and it can mentally destroy you. Because again, I think we're meant to be in relationship with each other, and when you put that on a pedestal and you don't have it, it just will drive you insane.
Yeah, you create really unrealistic expectations of the other person, right? And that can be a really toxic thing to do to not only yourself but to other people. It will drive people away,
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, no, I think you should have, like you said, a fully formed life that by someone joining it, like they become a part of it, and they're like they don't complete it, but they're like enjoying it with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I know that one of my least favorite versions of myself was my early days in college. It just was a man on a mission to be in a relationship, to get a girlfriend, right? And that was the most desperate version of myself, and it led to some of the worst dates and relationships I ever got into. It was never anything that was good for me or healthy for me or my mindset, and probably not for the other people either, and I don't really hold any grudges against these people. I was in a desperate place because I was like, oh, I'm in college, I should be, it's college is a time for experimentation and rampant sex and whatever, just that was I was looking for the traditional college experience, but that was not something that was going to be good for me. I was also not ready for that type of thing. It wasn't until I took a step back and stopped prioritizing and worrying about that things lined up better for me to be in a place where I was ready for a good relationship. And yeah, I know you were there for that for a good part, for pretty much my whole college experience, honestly, but for most of it.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, we do a lot of crazy things to be connected to other people, which is beautiful and terrifying.
Yeah, it's I know that I haven't been, I mean, you are actively in a place where maybe personally you're not looking to date right now necessarily, but you're in a place where dating is something you could do or engage in if you wanted to. When I was looking for relationships early on in those early college days, it was all online dating. Because that's what felt like a medium for me that made sense. And being that I'm kind of a nerd and don't go to bars super frequently, looking for people like that. And so but that whole tech, like the technology of that's evolved a lot. The number of platforms has evolved a lot. Like I had already mentioned to you while we were chatting, this book that Aziz Ansari helped co-write. I forget. Modern Romance. There we go. It's a really, really fun book. Like if you like Aziz Ansari, it's like done through the lens of his humor, but just like kind of an examination of dating practices like on a generational level, and then like what modern dating is like, what modern marriage is like, a lot of that type of discussion. And researchers are brought in. It's not just a comedian riffing. It's there's data there's numbers, things to discuss in terms of like average age for like dating, getting married, like how long people wait, kids, that whole thing. Like it was all very interesting, and definitely again, like a book that after I'd read it was like, oh, that was really good for like helping me reframe, like especially like what dating's like now.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of online dating. I know this may shock you, but I'm not really a good flirter. And like I'm okay with engaging people one-on-one and asking their maybe interesting questions and being friendly. I think I'm good at being friendly. And at least at this point in my life, like I'll be friendly and I don't really have any expectations more beyond that. But I think that is the work of the Holy Spirit. But and that's like been beneficial to me in a lot of ways. Like I feel like I've made more friendships with women in the past year just with having that attitude. And it's not even like I'm trying to make friends with people. It just kind of happens naturally because I'm just friendly and have no expectations beyond that. Yeah, it's interesting. I went out to a bar last night with some friends. Was that Limelight Restaurant and Lounge in Selwood. For all those Selwood people out in our listening audience.
Selwood represent.
Yeah. Like I was talking to this guy I met like relatively recently, it was a few months ago. We've become pretty good friends pretty quickly. But he's like, yeah, when I first met you, like I just like felt like you were like really cool. Like you were like, because I've been told I've been aloof a lot in my life from various people.
Sure.
It's like a positive and maybe a negative, and it's never been intentional. It's just that like I'm like a kind of a shy person, and I think people read that as like I think I'm better than them sometimes, and it's really that I'm kind of shy and don't really know what to say.
Right. No, I've definitely been there.
Yeah, and so like he's like telling me, yeah, you like really cool. Like that's what when I first saw you, like you were cool, and I'm like, okay, like I've literally never thought once in my life that I was cool. Not once in my entire life. And then like the other guy that was there with him like said the same thing, and I'm like, so that's how people are reading me, that I'm cool. So no wonder so many people have been wanting to hang out with me recently. Like it's just really fat. Like a lot of people like, yeah, we should get coffee sometime. We should get coffee sometime. You're like, cool. Like I want to get to like why? Like literally, I'm not doing anything except being nice. Like that's all I'm doing to these people. And like everyone wants to like a lot of people want to like chill with me, and I'm like, okay, like I appreciate, I love the attention. And as I've mentioned on this podcast previously, and like, well, I don't know if I mentioned it today, I've just been in a way like overwhelmed with all the invites to go do stuff, and I don't like turning stuff down. I'm like Jim Carrey and Yes Man. Like I want to say yes to everything just because.
Well, it's one of those things that like you don't want to like inadvertently or accidentally like cut off a potential like social connection for later. If you say no now, then it's like, oh, he's just not interested,
Yeah, and it's never really that. It's just like honestly, I'm just like beat sometimes.
Yeah,
I just
busy.
I need time to mentally recharge because I am an introvert. Like I am an introvert. But yeah, it's been a rewarding experience for me, like really entering into people's lives and being a part of that. And if God willing, if I ever do find a woman to spend my life with, I think it's going to be engaging in the world. And I think I'm actually have a gift for it more than I've realized as far as like engaging with people, which has been, it's been fun to find out. So,
I mean, I think that kind of tracks. Like I think of, our when I initially moved to Bozeman and started going to school there, you know, like your place was the one that like parties happened at, you know, semi frequently.
Well, twice. There's one fun party that I put on. Me and Ben and I.
Yeah. And but yeah, like I always like you definitely were one of those people that like had connections to a lot of different folks, you know.
Yeah.
And which like that those connections led to other connections and like led to you know, like to expanding your social circle in a way that like, you know, that came very naturally to you. I know that most of my friends are friends that I made from like high school and younger. Um, man, I really can't even think of anyone from college that like I've stayed in touch with like at all. Like I was a relatively solitary person in college. You know, I was focused on my studies for the most part, except for, you know, dating, like I mentioned. But yeah, no, like I've always, as an adult, it's really hard for me to make new friends. But like, you know, you also, like you've said, you know, you've been putting yourself out there, you know, in those types of social engagements. That's something I'm trying to be better about.
Well, when I first started, like when I first came to Christianity, I got invited to do stuff occasionally from a few people, and like before I walked into these things, like I would be so stressed out, like I would almost not be able to leave the car. In fact, there was a few times I sat in my car before going in that I just like, no, I can't do this. I'm gonna leave. Sure. And I did that. Like that happened 2 or 3 times, but I put myself in awkward situations enough times recently, like over the course of the past year, where I'm entering into places where I don't really know anybody. Sure. That at this point, like that anxiousness, though it hasn't gone away completely, has greatly diminished as far as like, I can't go into this place. I'm too nervous. I don't know what's gonna like that has gone down a lot. And I think part of it too is just because I know I have friends out here that like I feel comfortable with and I could call up or like hang out with pretty much anytime I want to. So it's like I'm not as much nervous about like worrying that think something's gonna go right. Because if it doesn't, I'm like, well, who cares? Like I still have another, like I still have friends that I feel comfortable with. And
yeah, no, I mean, like I have like some friends here. Like I would say that they're friends, but it's usually like, you know, just touching base with them and having the time for it. I know that I feel like with the types of hobbies that I engage in, I find myself wanting to dedicate time to those, and finding time to fit that in along with my marriage, along with my dogs, along with my job, like ends up being challenging.
Yeah. Well, the relationship, honestly, and that's like something that's factored into my calculation about whether I want to be in a relationship or not, is the free time that I have to do things. Because yeah, when you get in a relationship, it is a commitment, obviously, and there is time, energy you have to put into this person because you want to be with this person.
Right.
And
yeah, it's an investment of time and your energy. And you know, like the most social I am usually is I mean, recently it's been engaging with D&D, because I know that my wife has become obsessed with D&D, and so I'm getting pulled into the black void that is that hobby too. But which is fun. Yeah, I mean, it is fun sitting down and doing that. It's the most social I've been recently. But yeah, outside of that, it was always hanging out with my wife, you know, like
right. And honestly, like that's really, it's good, but like for me, like it's unhealthy to only want to hang out with your significant other. Like then you start to depend on them way too much for that. And
right,
frankly, it's stifling. It's a stifling thing knowing that someone else is completely depending on you for their social life. And I don't really want to be put into a situation like that. Oh, yeah. I just don't think it's where I want to be. Like I want to make sure throughout my life that I do have a group of friends that I can hang out with outside a relationship. And I think that's one of the beauties of church, and one of the things that was set up by that. Like it is really important to have that community of people, a family. And I think in a way, like I think we as Americans have lost that greater family. Like I think as we've moved into the cities, maybe become less rural, maybe, I don't know. I hate grand statements like that because is it true? I don't know, not universally, but I do think in general we're increasingly disconnected from each other, and that's led to a lot of depression.
Yeah.
For a lot
Well,
of
I mean,
people.
I think there is something to be said about like living in a more digital world. I know that just anecdotally, for example, like my nephew, he's definitely into video games pretty heavily. He like I heard this story like through my parents and having talked to my brother, but like he like turned down going over to his friend's house, but then that same friend, along with like a handful of other kids, all were engaging online. They were like, I think if I remember correctly, my nephew was like playing a VR game, and like his friends were like talking to him while he did that. So it wasn't like a VR chat situation, but they were all like engaging in like a Discord call or something while he played the game and they watched him. And it's just like, yeah, well, like that's a very different type of social life, right? Like you're able to do it from the comfort of your home, but it doesn't have like that physical aspect to it. So
Yeah.
but that being
Yeah.
said, I
Yeah.
know we are a little
Yeah, we're-
low on time here.
Down to 2:42 seconds. I'm wasting time.
But
Yeah.
but I don't know. Do you have any other closing thoughts?
I don't know. How do I wrap up this in a nice little bow? I don't know. Like, yeah, I don't know. I do want to get married someday. I just want it to be with the person that I really want to spend time with and grow old together. So
Yeah.
And raise a family with, and like God is increasingly a part of that calculation. So
Yeah, I mean, however way it ends up happening, I wish that for you. You know, I want nothing but happiness for my good friend Nick.
Yeah.
Like, and I know that, yeah, like things will pan out the way that they should, hopefully. And there's always room for adjustment. I know that, like, you know, just in like for me personally, you know, we talk about, you know, kids and stuff, but we're also like, is that something we ultimately want? I don't know. Like, I don't have all the answers. I want to hope we do, but you know, maybe we aren't ready for that. So
I think that'd be real. Like, I would like to have a kid. I think it would be really fun. Not obviously it'd be stressful in many ways, but I don't. Like I told you, like I volunteer at my church with the kids between 4th and 5th grade. I volunteer every other week to do that, and I love it. Like I really like kids. I've always really related well to kids. I think I have sort of like a childlike wonder about the world, which really helps. Like action figures and stuff. Like I would do that every freaking day still. Like when we were kids,
right.
I would still do that. If you were here and I still have my Beast Wars action figures,
we'd play Beast Wars.
dude, I would honestly, it'd be
So
amazing.
funny.
I know we're less than a minute, so we should probably like
Yeah.
do the close.
But at any rate, this was our rambly episode of the Nerds of North podcast. We'll probably be more on track with stuff next week. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed listening to us ramble, and we will talk to you all next week.
Bye everyone. Thanks for listening.